All right, looks like we are live. Welcome to episode 5 of the podcast, I think, and the first episode without our girl Lana. So sad to see her go, but I'm gonna have her come back for in the future. And I don't even know if I'm gonna be posting a lot of the same kind of content on YouTube eventually. So I don't know exactly how the format of this podcast is going to end up being. But for now, I really like engaging with you guys. And then I get a ton of comments because most people watch the replay. And then I get a bunch of feedback, and it's been pretty great and pretty positive. And that is kind of how I came up with the topic for today. It's kind of piggybacking off of the stuff we talked about last week to a degree, when we were discussing where does this notion of men who do this are simps and this beta male, this male grievance movement online, and where it kind of stems from, what are the different variations of it. And that's kind of what I'm interested in. And this whole incel culture, right? Incel ideology. I didn't hear anything about them. I didn't know who the fuck they were until like a couple years ago when one of my friends told me about them. And ever since then, I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating. Like, it's fascinating. There's this group of men online. I'm finally on time. Yay. Yeah, I need you guys to interact with me today. I didn't have the time that I hoped I would have had to like actually dive into this and have like an organized way I was going to present it. So I want today to be pretty interactive. I was going to do it last night, but then I watched House of Dragon and fell asleep. So, let me know what you guys think about it so far. I like it. I liked the politics. That was like my favorite part of Game of Thrones originally. I wasn't that into the whole White Walker storyline, so it seems like House of Dragon is kind of going to be my jam. And I heard that they kept all of the good writers from Game of Thrones, and then they got rid of like the people responsible for like the last season, which I think most of us aren't going to complain about that. But okay, so it was a couple years ago when I discovered this world, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I would like go into I was weird. Okay. That's what I would do on Friday nights. I would like go in and I was like trying to see like, why they think the way they do, and how prevalent was this kind of thinking? How much of a link is there between this ideology and some of the acts of violence that we're seeing perpetrated by young, lonely men? So I think the prime example of this was the Elliot Rodgers shooting. I forgot what year it was, but it's the one in Santa Barbara. He like went up and shot up a sorority. I think like 9 people died, which is really crazy that in our heads now, I think, 9 people, that means it wasn't like a terrible shooting. It's crazy how that is. 6 people died. Okay, so my moderator just corrected me. 6 people died. Yeah, so it's sad that we think of that as, and it's funny because after the Texas Uvalde shooting, I went in there, and I mean, the things that people are saying were just terrible. And they were actually, there was like a thread talking about who was the most successful. And like people were like, because they really idolize Elliot Rodgers, because some of them, now I do want to make that clear, that we need to think about it like so there's this ideology, and then there are people that, kind of subscribe to it. And I would say these are the people that you see on Reddit. That I was talking to one of the people that listen to this podcast, and he will comment positive things about me and the podcast under all my posts. People will specifically go in and downvote it, call him a simp, downvote it, call him a simp. And I think that is where we see like a lot of people are there. And then some people go a level deeper, and they are participating in these forums. They're using this terminology. They see this hierarchy that the incels have created. And then out of that, I think it's a very small percentage of them that actually glorify violence, and then there's a very even smaller percentage of them that would actually go out and commit these acts. So it's not saying that everybody that is an incel 100% subscribes to this ideology. In fact, one of my friends, childhood friends, is 20. He's my age. He's like 27 or 28. And he is an incel in the sense that he's never had sex. And we've all tried different ways to get him to, and he had never even heard of this community. So it's not even that all men, and one of the articles I quickly skimmed through before this did talk about how, okay, there is this number of young men that are sexless and they don't do well with women, lack of intimacy or intimate relationships with the opposite sex. And it's not that all of them then go into this really hateful, misogynistic worldview. However, there are links. So it's been shown that people are more likely to display misogyny. It's directly correlated with their belief in their mating value. So if a guy thinks that he does not have a good chance of getting women, he's more likely to be very misogynistic, which is not a crazy revelation, but we do have science to back it up. So when you see these comments of men that are now policing other men, like I see that all the time on TikTok, on Reddit. Somebody will tell something nice and then people under will be like, you're a simp, bro. You're a simp, bro. Like these really, and to me, and according to science and statistics right now, that guy is probably more likely to at least perceive himself as low status when it comes to the mating world. We also see that this community, they have shown that they also perceive women as valuing physical attractiveness more than they actually do. And that makes sense, right? If you do go through these forums, you will see that these men have to, in order to fuel their narrative, they have to believe that it's all external factors that they have no control over, right? So physical attractiveness is one of those things. They say, well, I was born like this. It wasn't my fault. I'm ugly. I'm this, I'm that. And women must only value these things because therefore it is completely out of my control. And I think that definitely fuels their narrative, but that's not what's actually true. So I was able to get some, I did. And if you guys want some of these sources, you can DM me. I didn't have time to send it to the moderator to put in the chat or something because this was all really last minute. But we see one thing that really surprised me is this stuff didn't surprise me. We see a lot of negative body image issues, anxiety, depression, suicide on a poll done by moderators on one of these incel forums. I think it was 90% had said that they had. I actually wrote it down somewhere. 90% had suicidal thoughts. I have seen the statistics in some of the quick research I've done go anywhere from 50 to 90%, which is very, very high. High rates of depression. And one thing I found really interesting was there's a really high rate of autism that we see. A lot of these people are on the spectrum, up to 50% of them. And the ones that are on the spectrum are more likely to glorify some of the violence that we've seen. So if you've ever been in these forums, which I have done deep dives in them, a lot of them will have Elliot Rodgers as their profile picture, or they'll have some of these other famous incels, or even if they're not even particularly known to be incels, just people that commit terrible acts of violence. However, people on the spectrum are no more likely to be violent than regular people in general. So what they have found is usually those ones that then turn to violence in the incel community also have other factors involved, like lack of parental controls, criminality, psychiatric comorbidities. There's other factors that will really determine which one of them is which ones are actually going to go be violent. But if you guys don't know, the incel theory is that physical attractiveness pretty much determines your place in the world. And as time goes on, and as women have gotten, this hookup culture and all of this, women are now going only for the top percentages of men. The chads, as they like to call them, these people have their whole own vocabulary. It's kind of impressive. That part's impressive. And then that leaves, the women that don't get those top percentages of men, like kind of with the normies, the middle people, but that leaves the bottom percentages of men with nothing. And they attribute it to, like I said, very much so physical attractiveness is like the number one thing. They are obsessed with the way that people look. Crazy. They're obsessed with the way men look almost more than women. They have all these like ways that they like, determine jaw and like the golden ratio and all of this. Like these men are analyzing other men more than they're analyzing women, which I think is really, really fascinating. And there's it has been shown that incels are also more likely to want to mate above their status, which therefore creates more of the issue of you're not successful. I think it does tie into some of the stuff we talked about last week. So last week we did talk about how the increase in usage of dating apps and how it's harder and harder for men in general. That is also has been found to maybe fuel some of this online. Comments really. He's not an incel, he's a virgin, big difference. Who? Humans are naturally done, our brains still have primitive defense programming. Yes. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. So the 3 ends of radicalization are, so there's need. So people need to feel like, so these people don't feel like they're needed and they're not important, right? The quest to be somebody. That's what the first thing that these people have in common. They don't feel like they're valued. They don't feel like they're worthy. They want to be validated. 2 is narrative. Now they need to explain. They need to explain their unmet needs. And they need to have a narrative that explains it. And so there's this whole thing in the incel world, which is called the black pill, which is basically like they took the concept from the Matrix, but they turned it into like black pill, like it's over. We're screwed. The world has nothing good to offer us. They have this whole thing that they call copes, like things that they use to cope with being like the way they are. And that can range from drugs, escapism, us being harmed. People consider like when bad things happen to women or bad things happen to normies as a coping mechanism, like, oh, that's a cope. They're suffering too. They are like the pinnacle of misery loves company, right? And so you have need, you have narrative, and then network. And network is the big thing here because the online world has allowed these men to find each other, to sit there and radicalize each other, to be an echo chamber for this narrative. Like, yeah, you know what? It's not our fault. We're like this. Women all suck. Women lie. They don't actually, we aren't important. They see themselves as members that were failed by the social contract. And that is sometimes what they use to justify violence or glorify violence, some of them. And there's very few of them who actually commit it, but there's a lot of people that are sympathetic to it. If you go into these forums, I would say the majority of the comments you'll read are sympathetic towards these acts. They're happy when these things happen because they're like, well, we're told that, we follow all these rules, right? The social contract, I don't hurt you, you don't hurt me, blah, blah, blah. But then if we follow the rules, we get nothing. We're told to follow rules, respect women, blah, blah, blah. But we don't get anything. They just go for the chads. So we see a lot of that. That victimhood mentality has to be there in order to fuel this, right? All of them see themselves as victims. These are the type of people that love to watch shock television, like the boys and House of Dragon, which I feel like a lot of people like that. I mean, that to me is a big leap. So we have our primitive brain, right? And I've talked about this before. That is the part of our brain that is separate from conscious reasoning, which is where our frontal lobe cortex comes in, right? So that's the part of our brain that has these fears, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to get online. People are going to judge me. What are people going to think? Blah, blah, blah. That is all the part of your brain that is in the front seat. And you have to use conscious reasoning and you have to use your frontal lobe cortex to kind of, combat that when necessary. Now, obviously, if there's like somebody running towards you with a gun and your primitive brain kicks in and you're in your fight and flight, then it's very helpful. But if it's telling you that don't send that email to your boss, don't go do this, you're going to look like an idiot, all of those irrational fears are coming from that part of our brain. And you do see that a lot. And again, I'm sympathetic to a lot of these people, because we do see that these people are not just, a lot of them are literally mentally ill, right? And high rates of depression, high rates of suicidal thoughts. And so the black pill, some people see it as, and you do see glorification of suicide. And some people say, nope, there's no way, we're never going to get out of this. The best thing to do is just kill yourself. Some people then turn it into, well, there's nothing we can do about this. But let's at least take out some other people or make them suffer the way that they have made us suffer. Kind of this revenge theory. Sorry. So I think, okay, so it's 82.3% from that study. I think it was in 2020 that had considered suicide, but I have seen it go from anywhere between 47 and like upwards of 80, whatever. So a lot of them, these are people that I need help, for the most part. But then I'm very interested in the way that this ideology bleeds out. And that's where I see a lot of these comments, because their sentiments bleed out into the normal world. And then they come up with this kind of code of ethics, which is like, we need to stop giving women all this power, and we can't pay for content from women. They have it way too easy, blah, 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 blah. It kind of reminds me, if any of you are familiar with Nietzsche's slave morality, which I have vast disagreements with, and his conception of slave morality would actually be analogous to what we consider morality today, and he goes into that. But essentially, his idea of master morality, which is slave morality, well, kind of how it like reminds me of this is like master morality, which is like the people, the haves, they base their morality on what they see as useful to them, right? Nobility, that's kind of what he uses. Oh, okay, being noble is good because it's useful and it leads to this. Slave morality, on the other hand, is morality driven out of opposition to master morality. It's driven from, I do not have this. This is what they have. This is not what I have. So therefore, that is bad. That has to be bad. And it comes from their oppression, right? Like their oppression is what fuels their morality, which I disagree with a lot of the way Nietzsche explains it. But in this context, that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, wow, these people have created a whole ethical code when it comes to their treatment of women, etc., based on the fact that they want something from women that women don't give them. Therefore, women are bad, women are evil, women are all of these terrible things. And, so are chads, so are normies, and they bad and we're good. And a lot of, I have a mindset coach who has me using meditation. Yes, meditation is great. I'm actually forcing myself to be better at it. Meditation is very hard for me because my brain is so overactive, but I am working on it and I have gotten better at it. But meditation has so many great benefits. So I'm really happy that you are practicing that, because I am trying to practice that as well. So yeah, when you think about these men and where their ideology comes from, they say, look, we have been given the short end of the stick. Is that necessarily false? No. There has always been the haves and the have-nots in society for all of history. There has been people that have been born into enormous privilege, and there's been people that haven't. And that can be across any number of criteria. There are people that are born extremely attractive. There are people that are born conventionally unattractive. There are people that are born extremely intelligent. There are people that are born not, and I think with these men, I think the three, like finding each other and finding that network and when you go on these websites, and I'm going to actually pull up very shortly here, a post that somebody had shared with me, and you can really see how they write these things and they fuel each other. They're like, oh, look, this girl did this, and look, she's with a Chad. Or, oh, I know they have this thing called Chad fishing, where they pretend to be like an attractive guy on a dating app, and they see that they get way more matches, and then they post it and they're like, look at this, is blah, blah, blah. I had never get matches, but I put up this fake hot guy and he got so many matches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you see that they take it to the extreme. Is there obviously some truth that attractive men are obviously going to do better in the mating world than unattractive women? Yes. Is it true that if you are not conventionally attractive and you have, you're socially awkward, you were bullied, all of these things all tie in together to feel this, and then you get online and you find other men that have had similar experiences to you, that have come up with this whole vocabulary and the answers to why you were wronged, it's going to be attractive, right? As if men aren't superficial and wouldn't look over the flaws of a beautiful woman. Yes. So the article that we're going to just go ahead and put it up. It's crazy to me. So this is a popular article or a popular post that somebody did. And what they do is, the reason that I wanted to respond to this is they make it seem like they are, he put references, he put all this stuff. He's like, oh, I'm disproving this. And he only told you part of the story. He left out huge reasons for some of the truths in some of his findings. So this is a post from Incel King. It says, debunking your bad personality is why you can't lay an argument once and for all. So that's another thing that these people do, is they look at what us normies say, like, oh yeah, women, don't like, and this is true, women are actually less of visual creatures than men, right? And it is not the case that only attractive men with a perfect jawline that are 6'4" find intimacy and happiness, right? So there's a lot going in here. And you see these men are obsessed with looks, and the women that they want are also it's like they consider themselves the least attractive people in society. They call themselves subhuman, but they're constantly only focusing on like the Stacys, which are like the most attractive people in society. And then they're like, people tell me that, it's just be yourself, bro, and that doesn't work. So number one, looks are objective, personality is subjective. And then he goes into, looks have objective component to them. There's been studies done, which this is true, that have found that particular physical traits are seen as universally attractive. So some of those are symmetry, things that like good skin, things like that people find universally attractive. For men, I think it's even more so. There are some more objective, like height, some of that stuff. I think with women, there's more of a variety, right? Like some people like tall women, some people like short women, some people like brunette, some people like blonde, some people like thick, some people like skinny. So I think with women, we cannot deny that although there is an objective component to looks, it is also highly subjective, right? So just like with anything, it's not all or nothing. It's not one. We, as human beings, we like to categorize. That's part of our primitive brain because it used to help us in the past. We didn't have time to look at a threat and be like, oh, I don't know. You're like, oh, no, category, bad, good, bad, good. That's the best way that we were able to survive. Again, evolution is slow, not necessarily something that serves us today. So when he says looks are objective, personality is subjective. So if we scroll down, he talks about people, images, and master recline across sculpture, modified versions of this mathematically ideal proportions. So yes, this whole mathematically ideal proportions has obviously shifted throughout time. How many of you look at exactly like the Renaissance era and the sculptures they would make of the most have you guys seen the sculpture for Aphrodite at the forgot where it is right now, but that woman would not be considered hot by any means today, right? She did not have a tiny waist. She didn't have a particularly big chest. She didn't look like the curvy thing that we all like today, which is also different from what we liked in the 80s and the 90s when the heroin chic skinny girl was in versus, all throughout history, there has been different ideals. There has not been mathematically ideal proportions that have been consistent throughout time. Like we said, there are biological reasons why we are interested, why we are attracted to certain things, but it's very different. Like there is a reason that men are attracted to breasts But we even see in today's age, not everybody likes big breasts. Some people like small breasts. People tell me online, some people tell me my boobs are perfect. Some people would like them even bigger. Some people are like, oh no, they're too big. So this idea that looks are objective, and then also that personality is subjective. So because to me, I'm like, how is personality subjective? If you're going to say that there are certain things like symmetry that everybody finds attractive, when it comes to personality, I mean, I think it's even more objective, right? What makes a good personality? I think most of us would agree that somebody who is warm, somebody who is funny, somebody who is nice, somebody who is honest, right? These are things that we all would consider a better personality than somebody who is arrogant, right? So there are definitely, as much as there's an subjective component to looks, an objective component to looks, there's definitely also an objective component to personality. And if you go down, if we scroll down, sorry, there's a hair in my mouth. There we go. Yeah, so this is all about the attractiveness stuff, which like I said, there are people that are going to be like, models or whoever that are just highly attractive. They have the high cheekbones, whatever. But even that, like models, like high fashion models are not even what is considered sexually attractive to a lot of men. He goes, this is common sense, really. If you look at physical features and facial structures of women that the opposite sex find attractive. Okay, go down because I want to get to the personality part. Oh yeah, unlike looks, personality is actually subjective. Everyone is unique and has different interests, hobbies, mindsets, philosophy, and beliefs. And based on what everyone's perception of what constitutes a good personality will differ from one another. So nobody can make an objective statement and say that a bad personality is the reason we incels can't get laid. There's no such thing as an objectively good or objectively bad personality, as the whole concept of personality is subjective. So that is circular reasoning. You guys can't catch that. But again, like what I said, I think the majority of us can agree on what a bad personality is, right? Even if you look at politics and you see that people's personalities are actually very polarizing, right? If it was so objective, then everybody would agree if somebody's personality is bad or, if it was so subjective, then it wouldn't be so, okay, most of us don't like liars. We don't like people who are dishonest. We don't like people who are arrogant. We don't like people who are rude. These are all considered negative. They're not considered in general. People aren't like in the world like, okay, do you like rude people? I like rude people. Do you like rude people? Oh, you don't? Okay, it's 50-50 in the room. You guys love being around rude people. You guys don't. No, most of us don't like being around rude people. Most of us don't like being around, people that just rub us the wrong way, right? People that are likable, there are definitely traits that make you more likable. So that's his first point. And so he says this and he's like, debunking it once and for all. And all the people that read this, I did not see, but I didn't go through the whole thing. Anybody, not one person that questioned this. As soon as they saw it, confirmation bias. Yep. Why? Because they need to feed the narrative through this network in order to explain why they feel the way they feel. So women tend to be attracted to the dark triad, I've heard it said both ways, narcissism, manipulativeness, and psychopathy. So he is right about this. What he completely fails to mention is that this is highly prevalent in young women and it decreases as women get older. It makes complete sense. So this isn't because women, it is shown that in younger women mistake these personality traits as being, indicative of a high value. I don't even like that word, high value man. But as they get older, you realize, just like when you get older with everything, and when you're young, you think, I know everything. And then you get older and you're like, oh, I actually know nothing. It's the same thing with this. So a lot of these incels are not 16, 17, 18 years old in high school. A lot of these people, the whole reason they consider themselves incels is because they've gotten to their 20s, late 30s, whatever, and they still have not found mates. And to use this as a reason for that is very flawed, because by that age group, women actually aren't attracted to these things. if you go down, he also says that, well, let's go to it. If you go down. So yeah, this whole personality thing, and kind of like what I was saying in politics, like we all kind of like have a sense, like, you know, Kamala Harris doesn't rub people the right, like, you know, people just aren't getting a good vibe from her. You know, she's not even necessarily about, her personality is not attractive to a lot of people. And it's not, and there's reasons for that, right? There are reasons for that. She's not very warm, right? Being warm makes people like you. Again, these are all objective. Okay. Also, we're told that we can't get women because women just can somehow sense our misogyny and get bad vibes from us, as if they have inbuilt personality detectors. But if they are so good at being able to read a man's personality, why do they find themselves in abusive relationships so frequently and so often? This leads us to conclude that not only do women prefer these types of men, wrong, but women don't have the magical power to read personality, as normies like to claim. Otherwise, you should have ended the sentence. And start a new one. Otherwise, they wouldn't end up with such men in the first place. They were really with those men because they found those men attractive. So again, completely ignoring the fact that women who end up in these type of relationships have a lot of factors. There are a lot of factors that can make you more likely. So women who have had abuse or trauma in their past, their upbringing, what kind of relationships they saw growing up. I mean, very, very, very clear evidence that what you see in your childhood, if you see your parents fighting, if you have an abusive father, you are more likely to be in an abusive relationship, versus it's not likely if you've had really great ideals of, or you had a very great representation of what a healthy relationship looks like. You are far less likely to get into this abusive in these abusive types of relationships. So again, he is attributing this to, oh, women like these kind of things. Women like to get in abusive relationships. Therefore, that is just because women in general are attracted to these men, when there are so many other factors that, you know, tie into this. And women in abusive relationships are not happy. So if this was so great and we were just so attracted to abusive, violent men, then we would all, that will be what we're all aiming for, right? So what the hell is this incel about? I know multiple guys are good looking with beautiful women because they're funny and have a great personality. Exactly. So yes, but I mean, I'm not here to just pick on incels. You know, they have their own issues. I do think that this can definitely, I think a big part of the conversation we miss, though, when we talk about, you know, gun control, all that stuff is important. But where is this revenge and I need to go, you know, hurt people because I've been wronged? We see a common theme amongst these perpetrators that none of them are, they're all men that are young men that have not had a healthy experience when it comes to relationships with the opposite gender. And a lot of them do have a lot of these sentiments. Now, again, very, very, that's the extreme side of it. But the less extreme side of it is actually prevalent online. Places like Reddit, the manosphere is what they call it, I think, where you see this, okay, they take this ideology and they have protective factors in place. So they're not going to be as radicalized. They're not going to hate everyone. They don't hate all women, whatever, but they still have this part of them that's like, oh, but it's still not fair. It's not fair that women, you know, they have it easy. They have it great. Why don't they like me? You know, the reason they're like this is because other men give them what you want. Oh, this guy keeps commenting nice things under her post. I'm going to downvote it. It bleeds out from this kind of thinking. So when you guys see these men online that are highly misogynistic, are trying to police you, don't be a simp, I wouldn't pay for this, I wouldn't pay for that, understand where it comes from, right? I just asked that type of dude who hurt you. Oh, yeah. So if you go through these forums, that's what you're going to keep asking yourself. And then they're going to tell you who hurt them. We hurt them. You guys hurt them. The world hurt them, right? And they have to see it as something out of their control, which is why you see a lot of stuff like this on there. They have to see it as out of their control, because if it's in their control, then they're responsible. And they can't be responsible. That kills the narrative. I was wrong. It's not my fault. I was born this way. You guys were born with everything. I was born with nothing. And I'm so sick of society trying to tell me that it's my fault or I could change or I'm responsible for this, because I just proved, even though I didn't, that personality does not affect anything. And we women just want to be with these obnoxious brutes. So he had one more point. Judging someone based on personality. So this is what he kind of uses too. So an ugly man may be confident, extroverted, and outgoing at the beginning. However, because he's ugly, women will show no interest in him and nobody will want to include him in their social circle. So eventually, after years of bullying, social and sexual rejection, he will become shy, quiet, and introverted because of negative reinforcement due to his looks. Again, he is taking this way too far. How many people do we know? In fact, I actually think most of the time, the most attractive people in the room aren't necessarily like the most fun. It's always like, the fun-loving guy that doesn't have the perfect jawline that everybody wants to be around. But they can't accept that. They can't. Every single guy I know, including me, is with a woman who's out of his league. Guys care about looks way more than women. Yes. And that is, again, very easy you could literally quick Google search on what men and you will find that men value physical attractiveness more than women, who are more likely to value status, other types of things. Again, that probably has it definitely has a strong evolutionary background. So as you see, your personality is influenced by people treat you based on your looks, which is out of your control. Therefore, personality is out of your control. Like, just think about how crazy that is. That your personality has nothing to do with you. It has to do with your looks entirely. Therefore, the most attractive people have the best personalities. I actually think public sentiment thinks the opposite, right? When someone's really attractive, they hear all the time, oh, you're actually much cooler than I thought. Oh, I didn't know you would actually be funny. Oh, I didn't know you would be smart too. I think there's almost a lot of us have an inverse relationship with that. Oh, and then what he's talking about is the halo effect. So the halo effect does have some truth to it. People use it in a multitude of different contexts. I know it's used like in marketing. If you buy a product from one product from a brand, you are likely to assume all their products are good. It's used basically what it says is that if you have a positive feeling towards something or someone, you are more likely to attribute other positive things to that person. So, for instance, like common example that was always used, I got my bachelor's in psych before law school, so I feel like I'm familiar with a lot of this stuff. But if you like somebody and you view them as honest, then if you find out that they did something wrong, you're more likely to assume it was a mistake, or because you have a positive feeling towards them versus a stranger. And it does also, there's evidence that it works on looks, but the way that it works on looks is you see somebody attractive and you're also more likely to assume they're successful and they're popular. That is the two things that we have seen. Not necessarily that they're the nicest, funniest, sweetest, amazing person, and that ugly guy must just be a terrible human being that like kills babies. So again, this thread was dedicated to the incel god. Okay. I and many others. So if you go down the comments, you just see the confirmation bias that all these people have. I and many others have known that, but people just don't want to accept this reality because of two reasons. Men have been brainwashed by their parents and society in general to worship voids are women, and be nice to them regardless of how they get treated in return. Living in this delusion that everyone has the same chance of getting a girlfriend, and it's all based on working. So again, they're black and white, living in a delusion where everyone has the same chance of getting a girlfriend. Nobody said everyone has the same chance of getting a girlfriend, right? But they're like, that's what they think, when really it is not in our control at all. And if you go down, you just see all of this, but all of this just reinforce. Then you get online out of the incel community and you see this get reinforced. Oh, simp, high value man, Chad, Stacy, these things bleed out. And then they bleed out on another level, like, well, why would I pay to get content from a woman, right? I feel like I don't have good mating perspectives. And that makes me angry, so I'm going to be misogynistic. Like we said, me and Lana said last week, plenty of attractive, successful men support women on OnlyFans, and they're not the ones that have this sentiment. So interesting stuff, something that you should, and then you're going to see crazy, crazy levels of racism, all of that in there. So when he says, what's even more ironic is some people say that foids, blacks, or whatever are discriminated in schools, jobs, etc. Why there's clear proof that they are in fact very much privileged in society, but of course it's fine when they say it. Again, what is he talking about? What about when, so if you just keep going down, it was never an argument. They were gaslighting us. So you just see comment after comment. And if you're just looking at this stuff, you think like, oh shit, there are thousands of men that feel like this. And there are, but we still, the top 10% are responsible. Yeah. So again, they will use things, because that's the thing. Some of the stuff they say, like if you look at it like, yes, attractiveness is linked to prospective dating or dating prospects, but they will take it and they will just go completely into crazy land with it. And a lot of them, it's because they do have other things that contribute to it. Like I said, there are plenty of men. We had that whole thing, the rise of lonely single men. I actually saw that incels were posting it, saying that, look what they're doing. They're driving all of us to incel-dom, and then we're going to take our revenge, and we're going to have all these women as sex slaves, and we're going to kill all the Chads, whatever the fuck they were saying. How come? No, I think short curry. So again, curry cell is an Indian incel. It's just these. If you ever want to just be like, ugh, I have a stutter and I'm ugly. If I could choose, I would swap sweet speech for looks any day of the week. Exactly. Take 100 women, ask them if they rather sleep with 5'2", balding, dark-skinned curry or a 6-foot white Chad. I guarantee they will all go to the jab. Looks are not subjective at all. High IQ post. Definitely not. I fucking hate void whores who admit that their true desires and use this as a flimsy defense shield. Just fess up and say you're Chad only. We already know it. And how do their cuck, simp, beta, male orbiters don't realize they're talking about probably you guys. They also support this flimsy defense. Like, see, these words come from this type of mindset, linked with depression, suicide, mental illness, a lot of terrible things. So when I see these comments on under my posts, the reason they don't bother me is because I don't think that they're all like this, but I know that it's coming from the same place. It's coming from this. I was not given what I perceive other people to have been given. So now I'm jealous. I'm the victim. I'm hopeless. And the way I can cope is just by pouring hate out online at women and at these men that, have not realized the black pill. I think they call it the blue pill. I'm not completely fluent in all the pills. Blame others, take no responsibility for life choices beyond my control. These mindsets are beyond unhealthy. Exactly. And this mindset is what I'm talking about. So taken to the extreme, we see stuff like this. Taken not to the extreme, but still very prevalent, is in this culture online that is not in particularly the incel culture. Maybe they have had girlfriends, maybe they have had romantic prospects, but they still see themselves as, I am not somebody that women particularly like. Therefore, as we have seen, I am more likely to be misogynistic. I am more likely to be in this online hate. Let me downvote men that are nice. Let me write mean things to women, even though I'm consuming their content. I'm not going to pay for it because that's making me a beta cuck male. What is it? Cuck simp beta male. I don't even fucking know. But that is where this is coming from. And so why would you ever let those comments get to you, men or women, right? When it comes to solutions, I don't know that there necessarily is one. When it comes to, what can we do? Again, blame others, take no responsibility for what beyond my control. These are things these people need to learn, because it is in your control. Again, I understand some of them are, on the spectrum. There are other things that can prevent them from being able to rationalize through this. However, I think this network that they've created, like this site, has definitely given them this, oh, look, all these people think like me. Hey, bro, look, here's me confirming it again. Look, I therefore concluded that women, oh, yeah, we already knew this, bro. They fucking suck. They suck. They suck. They suck. They suck. They suck. Now we get on places like Reddit, and somebody may have kind of seen some of this, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, they're right. And then they see another guy that's saying something nice. Yeah, he's like, and that's where this comes from. So always think about what the sentiment is behind some negativity you see online, because again, it comes from this idea that women have it easy and we're choosing all these chads, and then the men that support us on OnlyFans or whatever are just being beta, cuck, simp, whatever. Like I said, if you go out into the normal world and you talk to men that aren't even necessarily attractive, that are just doing things, that are busy, that are emotionally intelligent, that are actually intelligent, they don't even use these words like at all. So it is really interesting. An orbiter is a man that is friends with okay, I actually didn't know that. An orbiter is a man that is friends with a woman, but is friends on and waiting for the chance to somehow get with her. Again, I feel like a lot of these men, these incels, have been in this position, and now they assume that a lot of other men are therefore in that position. And again, something that you guys, if you haven't figured it out yet, a lot of these men will say things online, but then behind closed doors also engage in the same activity. They're going to be in our DMs. They're going to be, and you see it because if you reject them, then they're like, oh, and they get angry. It's okay. What the fuck? This website, it's scaring me, bro. If you go on this website, you will be mortified. Like, you will be mortified at some of the stuff that they say. There's no way anyone can argue that we can't get laid after reading. Oh, there we go. There's literally no way anyone can argue that a bad personality is the reason we can't get laid after reading this post. There's so much scientific evidence which supports the black pill. Humans have selected mates based on physical features and characteristics since the beginning of human history, as physical attributes are an indicator of genetic strength, which is correlated to the probability of survival for the offspring. Personality never had anything to do with sexual selection, except for the fact that we have been shown multiple times that women actually do not rate physical attractiveness at the same place that men rate it. In fact, women are more likely to be with men of higher status, which means men that are wealthy, which means men that are, seen as leaders. These are things that women are actually far more attracted to, which is why you actually see a lot of, when you think of the gold digger, they're not with like the most attractive man. They're with somebody that can provide them with resources. So, I mean, even from an evolutionary perspective, this is completely wrong. So yeah, and I did see another statistic when it comes to incels that I think it's 18% of them versus 9% in the normal population are not in employment, education, or training of any kind. So, and I think I also saw another place where like 42% of them live at home with their so these aren't just men that are failing in the dating arena. These are men that are usually failing in multiple arenas. And then they attribute all of it to these external circumstances. Well, I don't get women because I'm ugly, and now I'm treated like shit. I may have been bullied when I was younger. That's also why I can't get a job. That's also why this, why that, why this. And then do you see how it creates this terrible community of rage? And I think it is attributed, and why we see more and more of these terrible things happening is I do think more and more men. So there was the guy in England, there was the guy in Canada that like ran his truck over a bunch of people. He would idolize Elliot Rodgers. There was, there's just been, a lot of this that you see. Nailed it. Yeah. So interesting stuff, but kind of where I wanted to take it is kind of into what we were talking about yesterday. So when we see the rise of single lonely men, and that women are looking, it didn't say the rise of single, the conclusion in that article wasn't that men need to therefore just be more attractive. It was that women, when they ask what they're looking for, they want emotional intelligence. They want somebody that can make them laugh. They want somebody that, I have been out with men that I thought were perfect when it comes to attractiveness, that I could not wait to go home because there was just no depth to them, right? In fact, I mentioned this last week. With women, IQ is one of the things that actually women seem to go either equal or they want somebody smarter than them when it comes to IQ. And that has nothing to do with your looks. Although you can argue that is very much genetic as well. That's not what these people are upset about. In fact, a lot of them claim to be very high IQ. I don't know if that's true, but even if Redditors were right and personally was the reason I can't get laid, it's not like I can control how I act around people. And I'm fairly good at lying to people, so I doubt they would be able to sense my misogyny. Foids only care about looks. Full stop. So yeah, this stuff is just really crazy. And this is like a not even that crazy of a post. If you were to just go click on their, like, the main page, if you just click on the incels.is little logo, and you just see, if you guys are ever bored and you want to disturb yourselves, if you go down, so the must read content, if you click on that, for instance, scroll, you just see post after post, scientific proof that the order of importance is race, height, space, money. So like all of this proof stuff is this is what every boy thinks about ugly men. Fact checking, like, they are, a lot of crazy stuff is on here, and you see, this is obviously the more extreme population of this ideology, but this ideology does bleed out, and we get things like the manosphere, we get things like the male grievance movement, and stuff. So response to, you're not entitled to sex, how society is sociopathic towards incels, balding is so, you guys, this stuff is crazy. I'm living proof that money doesn't attract women. Almost 200 porn stars say 5'7" and they're obsessed with height. They're obsessed with, like I said, they're very obsessed with male physical traits associated with dominance. As you see, a lot of these men are sick, and then they radicalize each other online, which can be very scary at times. And in the best case, it's just sad, and it leads to, some of the stuff that I see online, being an online sex worker. They hate women like me the most. So, high school never ends. It's extra, yeah. So if you go on these things and you expect to see something positive, you are never going to see anything positive. And obviously, as I've talked about before, and I will talk about more, if that is what you're feeding your brain, negative, doom, hopelessness, you are obviously going to stay there. And that can sometimes lead to really negative consequences for others. It can lead to very negative consequences for yourself. I am almost certain that this website has made some incels more suicidal or caused them to be suicidal if they already weren't. I mean, there's nothing good that you see. Sometimes you see guys that'll post their picture and they'll be like, oh, can I ascend? Ascend is when you leave inceldom, and everyone's like, no, you're screwed. You're screwed. Perfect. Like, if Misery Loves Company could be like, this could be the poster child for that, right? All right. Any comments? Some of my favorite people did email me and message me that they couldn't make it to the live, and I'm really sad because I know they have great things to say. Men obsession with height is so weird. Women might say they want someone 6 feet, just like guys say they want someone with huge Thots, but most women just want someone taller or as tall as them, which is not hard because most women are short. I'm 5 feet tall. A guy I was with the longest was like 5'6", and I'm, considered hot to a lot of men online. I have huge tits. So again, not true. And a lot of these short men that do get beautiful women, guess how they get it? Their personalities. Guess what I was attracted to in this guy? His personality. Like, it's just, it is crazy. Sheep. You know something about sheep? Sheep are actually very intelligent on an individual level. When they're by themselves, they're very intelligent. The thing unique about sheep is when they get in a group, they're idiots. And one of them goes off a cliff, and then they all go off a cliff. So that's what this is breeding. And then my lawyer brain just goes into, okay, when it does come to some of the scarier stuff I've seen, like when I did go on after the Uvalde shooting, oh my goodness, people were like hoping for the death count to go up, all this stuff. There was a whole thread on whether it's moral to kill children, and the majority of them said yes, because they're going to grow up to be normies and they're going to bully us, or that's the way to hurt their parents, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, what can we do about this? And I am a big proponent of the First Amendment, so I'm like, we can't stop them from expressing these kind of sentiments, because that would just be viewpoint discrimination. So where is the line? I know that the FBI has been, and they use different code words that I'm trying to I'm weird. This is what I do on Saturday nights. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I think with the Joker movie, that warning that went out, that was because of this community. But yeah, I did not know about this. They've been banned off Reddit, but they have created other groups, and you still see a lot of they spend a lot of time on Reddit. So you see a lot of those sentiments bleed out on Reddit. I'm sure a lot of them, like the rest of the world, they're not more likely to watch porn, but they're more likely to watch porn and see it as like, I'm never going to engage in this. I'm angry. I hate women. And porn obviously gives you this idea that women all need to look like this. Like this guy was saying, women all need to have these huge tits, but then men have to have these 13-inch cocks and all be chads. And as we know, just like it's not the reality for women do not all need to look like porn stars, and men also don't need to all look like porn stars. Incels aren't just sad boys. They're dangerous psychopaths who have committed multiple murders and mass shootings. Yes, a percentage of them. Not all of them. Some of them, when you just read their posts, they just seem really sad. And some of them turn suicidal. Some of them turn homicidal. And those are the ones. And what factors contribute to the ones that turn homicidal? There needs to be like some other stuff involved. Thankfully, otherwise, if you were to read this stuff, you would think like, oh my God, there's going to be a mass shooting. Well, there kind of is every day, but not all of them are from this incel world. But a lot of them do exhibit some of these traits that they have. And incels do keep saying that, oh, we're going to have more and more of this until things change, until retributions are made to us. It's funny what you said about House of Dragon, because a lot of them, you almost feel like they think we're living in like medieval time. Like one guy, I remember he wrote like, this really perfect guy was walking through the mall, and I was just like, oh, if only I could challenge him in combat and win. And I was like, challenge what? Like, would people pull out a sword? Like the mall? Like, ooh, like it's just, I'm like, what? Again, you see the interplay with, okay, you are not considered very physically attractive. Cool. A lot of people aren't. Most people aren't, because what makes somebody attractive is that they are more attractive than other people, right? So if we all look the same, nobody would really be attractive. So a lot of us aren't considered attractive, but then you mix it in with, okay, I don't have a lot of friends, or I'm socially awkward, or blah, 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 blah. And then you go into, oh, these other men also are this way. Oh yeah, he's right. Oh my God, he just proved women don't like looks. I can't believe. And then you see, fuels it. Then we have the onset of things like, I remember one person, if you guys remember when OnlyFans was about to ban explicit content, and then they decided not to. And I saw this super long post about this guy being like, my day is ruined. It seems like no matter what, Foids get away with everything. I can't believe, like, finally they were going to get rid of these Foids being able to make easy money. And now, like, they're going to let Foids get away with this. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, how are you this upset that other people are going to continue to make a living? It is very, very scary sometimes. And it is very sad, but it is also very disappointing that these men have been able to that this ideology has been able to bleed out to the extent that it has. Now, again, luckily, the majority of people are not like this, but especially when it comes to these online, in fact, Twitch, I know that they started this thing about like women can only wear bikinis because a bunch of men got really upset and they started like I can't believe women are allowed to wear bikinis and get views. And then I think now Twitch has banned using incel or simp as like insult. Like I think from what I read, which is why I'm talking about it, you're able to talk about it like this, but you're not able to use it as an insult. But you're able to use whore and all these other things as an insult because that has not been a problem yet. But I'm not sure it's productive to ostracize incels. They subscribe to an unhealthy ideology and they need to seek help. Making out to be freaks only reinforces everything they believe. That is why I'm careful not to, like when the guy said they're dangerous psychopaths who have committed, that's why I said that's not the majority of them. That is a small percentage of them. Ostracizing them is not what I'm really trying to do. Understanding them is what I'm trying to do, which is why I'm trying to point out the mental fallacies in their thinking. And I'm not saying they are all terrible people. In fact, a lot of them, I said, do have mental health issues that prevent them from being able to see this stuff rationally. But at the same time, these are people that are expressing hate towards a lot of people and are glorifying hate and racism and violence and misogyny and homophobia, all of these things. And I'm not going to just let that slide. And not say that there's an issue with that as well. I think what else are we supposed to do? Not talk about them? Talk about solutions for them? They're not, I mean, I'm open to solutions for them. We can't force them to go get help. A lot of them don't even see that they've been blackpilled. There is no answer for them. Another sign of a weak man, wishing failure on another person. Yes. Like we said, I've said this multiple times, nobody who is spreading hate towards people for being successful, for sitting online and making money, if you're reporting a girl who's on TikTok that you can tell is trying to think OnlyFans, all that tells me is that you are not happy and you are not flourishing. Because when you're happy and you're flourishing, you have no interest in bringing others down. The only time you want to bring others down is when you want to bring others down to where you are. But even if a small percentage of incels commit murder, the rest cheer them on. Nobody on that kind of forum would chastise someone killing. Yeah, that's why when the person said we have to just leave them alone, I'm not saying we ostracize them. We call them freaks. Like I said, a lot of them have issues that they're dealing with that I can't relate to, and I feel very sorry for them. But at the same time, this is an issue. This is an issue. And I don't think we can just ignore it, especially when we do see that in the small percentages of them that do commit these murders, and then the rest of them glorify that person. How are we, like, when people are wondering why people live stream murders these days, because they want this internet glory and fame, we're seeing an example of this right in front of us with this community. So, I think there's a way to talk about them and to explain the logical fallacies in their reasoning without, I could come on here, guys. I could have come on here and just made fun of them for this whole time. Believe me, I could have. It's very easy to do that. But that's not kind of what I wanted to do with this podcast, which is why I actually looked at research like, oh, okay, these people are depressed. They're suicidal. This is where this is coming from. They feel like they have been wronged. And like I said, I'm not saying that all of it was in their control, but I'm also saying all of it is also not out of their control. So you can think, like when we talked about happiness and how it's been shown to be about 50% genetic, you can look at that and be like, oh, I'm screwed. It's 50% genetic. I didn't get that. Instead of looking at, okay, well, I have a whole 50% I can improve on. But again, a lot of them, especially if they have other mental illnesses that are interacting with their poor circumstances, they're not going to be able to see that the way I can see it or the way you guys can see it. Any other questions or comments on this? My main point of today is just that to be aware of this ideology, and then when you see it online, understand it and try to combat it. And it's not just with them. When it comes to the, like, they love Andrew Tate, bro. If you put Andrew Tate incels on Google, they love people like this. Again, this is kind of why it ties into last week. This world of, oh, okay, this hierarchy. If you look at everything, hierarchy of what women want, and this guy is telling me how I can get more women is because I need to act more dominant, blah, 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 blah. And then you see these forums and these people really like this guy. And then you see people that maybe aren't as extreme really like this guy. It's all bullshit. It's not true. If it's true, maybe 20% of it is true. The rest is not. So be mindful of that. And I think we all should kind of do our part in being like, no, this is wrong. This is not true. And when you see, and one thing I wanted, when we talk about the stigma of men who purchase OnlyFans and how they're losers and they're this and that, look at where that comes from. What kind of traits do these people have that is making them believe that misogyny, what makes someone more likely to be misogynistic? So all right. Anything else? Again, my favorite people, not that you guys aren't my favorite people, but I know some of the 3 or 4 of them messaged me and they were like, I can't make it to, I might change the time because it's literally 11 a.m. on a weekday. So I completely understand how a lot of people can't join the live. What are we talking about? Well, you will have access to the replay. And yeah, anybody else that has anything to say or conclusions or questions or, anything? I think this is a super fascinating group of people to study because, like I said, you can learn a lot about human beings by studying, I hate to say it, but times when people's development went wrong. You can learn a lot from that. Or like I said, you could study groups or environments that are extreme. Like you see a lot, I think I'm obsessed with studying prisons. I love studying prisons. Weird because you just see. How do we prevent young men from turning into incels? Great question. A question that I do not have the answer to. I have some ideas that maybe I was like, okay, but we're all in this together. How do we prevent young men from turning into incels? How do we prevent young people from going down bad paths in general? So this is, I think, one example of that. Strong sense of community, good friendships, good role models, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of them say bullying can lead to this. I think that might be true. Be kind to people. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't know how to stop this. Maybe there is going to be a percentage. There's always going to be a percentage of people who are who don't have it good. How do we prevent them from turning into incels? How do we prevent this online sphere? Well, I mean, the obvious answer is to cut off their access to each other. We can't do that, nor should we, I think, because that is just bad precedent. But I don't know. I do not know. These people are not people that seem to be that they could, once they are in this sphere, that they can really be reasoned with before they are in, like when I look at, if we try to distinguish between what protective factors can turn men, you cannot prevent it. Part of me thinks that. But if we can increase protective factors in people's lives, so for instance, like this guy I know that is 29, 28, 27, one of these ages, and he still has not had sex, but he is not like this at all because he has a good family. He has he tried hard in school. He has a job he likes. He, all those things that can prevent people from going down this route, because there is a lot of men, especially a growing percentage of men actually that are sexless, young men that are sexless, but it's not that all of those men are therefore thinking like this. A percentage of those men go this way and some of them don't. So what makes some people go this way, what makes some people not? I think deplatforming incels helps curb the spread of these harmful ideas. Look at how many people Andrew Tate infected. I think that can help. I am like one of those, deplatforming and banning people on. I get banned all the time, guys. I think that this is different. I think if you're spewing real hate, I understand like I know Andrew Tate has been banned on everything. Incels have been banned on Twitter. They had a couple subreddits on Reddit, and Reddit has banned them. So that's why they have their own places now. Incels.me, incels.is is where they kind of go now. I do think a lot of times people just pointing out this stuff. I think there's a forum on Reddit called like Incel Tears or something, where people kind of like post some of this stuff and like counteract, like be like, why do people think like this? And the incels do read it, and sometimes they get angry and they go on their site like, oh my god, I can't believe this person said this. But sometimes you need to, I think, break the echo chamber, right? That's the last thing you need. I don't know how to really prevent them from feeling like, I don't know how I can implement a policy, right? I know how in an individual person's life, like if I saw my child going down this route, I have some things that I could maybe do to affect that person, but I don't know how to do it on a mass level. Then we have narrative, the narrative they're creating there, and then the network, right? If we can at least intervene in the network, so they're not just hearing, oh my God, yeah. If somebody's like, hey, you know what? Women are attracted to those traits, but no, they're not attracted to them as they get older. And some of these men are just not going to accept it. They've already done the black pill. It's over. But maybe some of them, before they get that far in, they're like, oh, okay. You also do see a lot of people that they put these posts like, oh, I tried, I went to the gym, I did this, I did that, and my life still sucks. Don't even try, boys. Don't even try. And these posts get a lot of upvotes, or I don't know what they're called on there. I don't know if it's uploads. But because people like that. It's crazy because they want to be reinforced in these beliefs. So they don't. If a guy's like, hey, I'm actually doing great, I kind of talked to this girl, he gets kicked out because people don't want to see that. People want to see, oh yeah, the world sucks. You guys are my brothers. We feel all this way together. And that is where this online policing culture comes. Like, oh my God, these other guys, they're not even chads. They're like normies, and they don't even get these women either, but they just bow down to them and they support them and they're nice to them because they're the ones that are ruining this for us. Let's go downvote them and write that they're simps. Like where it goes to. Listen, some people feel invisible and just want to be heard. Of course. Yeah. I used to visit Incel Tears, Reddit banned that too. Okay, yeah. I never went on it. I just read about it on the incel forums. But yeah, some people do want to be heard. So be kind. But that's the thing. These people, part of their mental illness is that they idolize and they want to be like, they don't just want to be treated kindly in public, although sometimes that's what they say. They want women to fall like all over them, like they perceive that they do for these chads. That's not something that I'm like, okay, girls, every girl go fucking incel, and that's like, right, there's no solution like that. If they have this unrealistic dream and we can't make that dream happen for them, sorry, that you're not gonna be heard. We're not gonna just be like, okay, well, you realize he's talking about the 5.5. So if average men take this advice seriously, average men are never going to get women. Yes, I think this ideology can make men that had the potential to not be incels, now you're definitely going to be an incel. If you are like, hey, I'm not doing really great, especially if you're young and you're like, I don't know, what can I do? And you see Andrew Tate online and you see incels say that, oh, you're screwed anyway, or you try to take Andrew Tate's advice and you still fail, because you inevitably will. And then you find this group online, and you, instead of finding maybe a positive influence that you're like, hey, this guy is kind of like me and he does well, He seems like a good person. He doesn't hate. And then instead you find people that hate everyone, and now you hate everyone, and then you're in the same predicament. They only think they want women because they have nothing else. I think human beings, especially men, right? A lot of ideas of male success are surrounded with the ability to have women, right? That's why a lot of men want, I want to be an NBA player, you're gonna have all these girls. And yeah, it's not the only measure of success. But also when you think about these guys that aren't getting sex, they're not all like, oh, I'm looking for a prostitute. It's because they're also lacking intimacy. And human beings, we all want intimacy. Like, it is sad. Some of these guys have never had a girl like them. Like, they have never had somebody that had a crush on them. They feel like they were always rejected, et cetera, et cetera. So you can definitely see how they feel this over and over and over, right? Nobody comes out of the womb an incel, but people may come out of the womb with personality or genetic components that, if triggered, can be more likely to lead to inceldom. I think that's true, but I don't think anybody comes out like that, right? They, part of it is they have things that have happened to them in society, times they have been rejected, and then it feels with their own, way that they think about it, the narrative that they put around it. And then whenever my friends would see a cute girl with an average guy, they'd always say he must be rich, and they were not incels. But so many men have similar. This is why I'm doing this segment. Literally, I didn't do it well because I wish it was more organized. When I do a YouTube video on it, if I ever do, obviously with the YouTube video, I can edit it and I can have everything be really clear. I can have be able to connect what I'm saying with why I'm saying it better. But this is exactly what I'm saying. A lot of men do have these ideas. Now, they're not going to be like the guys on these forums that just hate everybody and it's over and I'm black pill, black pill, black pill. No, but they're going to take parts of it and be like, oh, okay, no. Women are like this, and men, and Andrew, why is Andrew Tate so popular? Why is even someone like Jordan Peterson so popular? Why are any of these people so popular? Because obviously there is a group of men that feels like they are inadequate, and they are like looking for ways to get out of that, and they're not necessarily finding the right ways to get out of that. Anything else? Sad to say, but when I see a beautiful woman with an average looking guy, I always think he's either packing downstairs or he's really rich. Again, no. Like, I'm not saying that there is no link between women and wanting to be with men that can take care of her or whatever. But again, people want to take things to an all or nothing. That's how our brains work. So you have to use the reasoning part of your brain to be like, okay, this, like I said, this may be 20% true. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's not 100% true. And in fact, a lot of beautiful women are with men that are not as beautiful, I guess, as them. Because, I mean, even me and my best friend and me have completely different taste in men, like completely different taste, even in physical appearance. So this whole idea that physical appearance is objective. I mean, she likes very, very skinny, she likes very small men. I don't necessarily like big men, but she completely has the opposite. Even with this whole thing, like we see like everyone's like, oh my God, Kim Kardashian with Pete Davidson, like that doesn't match because he's like this and she's like that, and all the time you see that. Hate to admit it, but I used to feel the same way, and one day I was that guy and I was neither rich nor packing. Yeah. And this whole packing thing, like, how would we even know until we're like in that, like, you know what I mean? Like, by the time we see your dick, it means you've already been somewhat successful. So we don't necessarily, it's not like, we just see and we're like, okay, we don't know. That's a very weird idea that I keep seeing, maybe because of porn, and a lot of these men, their only interaction with relationships is through porn and media, which is not accurate, as we all know, a lot of the time. But they're like, oh yeah, women are gonna, and that's why you see this prevalence of online men just being obsessed. How big is big? Blah blah blah. This fear that, okay, men that are able to satisfy women sexually are therefore the men that are getting women. But in order to know if a man can satisfy you sexually, you need to be in a sexual context with them in the first place, which that is where a lot of these men are never getting to. So I don't understand. It's not your dick because you haven't had the opportunity to even show a lot of women your dick because you haven't even made it to that point. So you thinking that your dick is the reason that you're not getting women and that guy must have a bigger dick and that's why he's getting women makes absolutely no sense, because you don't just walk up to somebody and show them your dick, right? You usually need to be in a private setting. Okay, how did you get that girl into the private setting? Did you just talk about your dick size? Because I promise you that would not be a successful way to get women alone with you. So that never made sense to me when people, and I see it so much in the online world, is men obsessed with what they see in porn. Oh, what's a perfect blah, 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 dick. I can tell you one thing. I know a lot of women, and I know a lot of women in this industry too. We do not care. We do, like, yes, okay, again, there's no extremes. Of course, we don't like dicks that are extremely small, right? Like, that's just not attractive. But that doesn't mean that, an average size dick or a man with an average size dick, we're like, oh my God, yeah, his dick is, no, that's just not true. We don't care a lot of the time about that. What makes good sex, I've researched this by like sex experts, is actually intimacy, confidence, stuff like that. Confident men do not worry about what their dick size is, and they don't get it. Like, obviously when you're young and you're insecure, just like women, when we're young and insecure, we're just like, oh my God. I think younger men, they like measure their dick because they haven't had, but as men get older and they have more experience with women, especially the ones that are able to do that, they realize quickly, oh, okay, whatever. But the men that don't stick with it and they watch porn and they do all this and they're like, oh my God, is my dick too, would you, like, how many men send me pictures of their dick and they're like, would you fuck me? Would you fuck me? Would you fuck me? And I'm like, what? When would I ever see somebody's dick and be like, oh, I would fuck that, I would not fuck that? If I see your dick in person, probably we're already being sexual towards each other. And it's not a situation where a woman is going to see your dick and be like, oh, not 9 inches. Never mind, I'm going to leave. That does not happen. From the size of our feet, obviously. Love that. Be confident in yourself, make her laugh, and own your stuff. Those rules have never failed me. They don't. There's something about a confident man that women, especially women that are older and they're not as fooled by these false sense of masculinity, like that toxic masculinity that we see in high school, right? We see women in high school, oh, I like the bad boy, I like the drug dealer. Who the fuck in their, when they're 30 years old, unless they have some cognitive deficiencies, which may be the case, or they have some abuse trauma in the past, is like, I am looking for a drug dealer, guys. I'm looking for a guy with a criminal record. Like, that's not what that's just not true. But confidence, men that are high integrity, courageous, all of these things, these are personality traits that we have seen replicated in even media, right? Like, yes, the hero, the prince of this movie is always attractive, but he's also courageous, he's also confident, he also has a strong moral code, because these are things that we also find attractive in the package of people we're looking. So if you are lacking in one trait and you want to use that one trait to therefore be like, well, I'm screwed, when all of these other things are things you can work on, you can build your emotional intelligence, you can build your critical thinking skills, you can build all of this stuff, and you're choosing not to, that's on you. There's room for self-improvement in everybody. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I'm sorry it was kind of all over the place. If you guys have topics for next week, let me know. I want to go on Twitch one more time this week, but I don't want to have it I'm trying to put some other kind of content on Twitch too. Maybe I'll go to the pool. That last time I couldn't figure out how to stream. Or I know usually we did Mondays and Fridays. Maybe Friday can be, I don't know if you guys have any ideas of not, maybe I could do like a Q&A. I know you guys are able to ask me questions like anyway, but maybe I can ask my OnlyFans crew and my Snap crew and Instagram if you guys have any questions, and I can maybe do that on Friday. And then next week we will think of a new topic. But I know a lot of people were interested in this and they messaged me about it, and that's why I thought I would talk about it a little bit today. And I had a fan of mine that would constantly comment positive things under my Reddit post, and people would just keep downvoting it, calling him a cuck. And I was like, okay. And then you go on those guys' profiles, always, just do it. It's fun. Go on those guys' profiles and look at their comments, because you can see on Reddit, hate. And then my brain goes, okay, this guy is insecure. He's very likely to be suicidal, according to, not suicidal like in the sense that nobody healthy behaves this way. And then if you look at big picture, okay, if someone behaves this way, they're more likely than the average person to be X, and X. And so sucks for them. But then I think a lot of us online, because we like to care what people think, which I think one of the reasons that I'm as successful as I am so far and how I hope to become more successful in the future is by breaking out of that. I don't care what people think. I do not care. Especially if you are living a life that I would not want to live in my worst nightmare. Sad for you. I hope you get better. But if you think for 1 second that what you say is going to dictate my behavior, my actions, so I can end up in the place you are, no thank you. And that should be the case for all of you positive people too, that I hope, and I do see this. I do see men that are really nice or they're ashamed of being positive and nice to sex workers or women in general, because they're like, oh, am I being a loser? Am I being a cuck? The men that are calling you that are no more successful than you, and they're actually far less successful, and they're much sadder. Right? Nobody's happy. No, the black pill doesn't make anybody happy. The black pill, hopelessness, doom, all of this is not linked to happiness at all. So don't fall down that path. All right. Think that's that. Yeah, you guys can message me on any of my socials. I do respond and take, my OnlyFans subscribers and my Snap subscribers. Those are the messages I interact with the most. But you guys also, we have the email. You guys can email the podcast email, which has Lana's name in it, but that's okay, because she's with us in spirit. Will Lana be back? Lana has different long-term goals than I do. So she wants to work back into like a normal job. I don't. And also I have been lucky enough that I have grown a platform on Reddit and some other places that I'm able to take time out of my day doing something like this that doesn't get me money, like doesn't necessarily translate to subscribers and money, right? If I go live for an hour and a half on TikTok, I will make money. If I go live for an hour and a half here, I might make no money, but I genuinely enjoy this and I want to put out this content into the world more and start YouTube and everything. For Lana, it's just not worth it for her to spend an hour and a half doing something that isn't going to bring her, that isn't going to help her financially or long term, right? I think of it as, oh, this is going to help me long term. For her, she's just not as she's not as passionate about this stuff as I am, which is another thing. Like I love this stuff, as you guys can tell. Lana is very smart, very highly intelligent. That's not at all what I'm saying, but I'm saying she's just not interested in it as much. Like, I'm like, oh my God, let's discuss this. And she's just like, okay, so tell her we wish her luck. Yes, she is. And I hope to have her back on When, if this takes off and I start doing like guests and stuff, I would love to have Lana back on. I would love her opinion on some kind of stuff, but she really wants to start her own accounting firm. That is her dream. Her dream is to start her own accounting firm. And this is not obviously conducive to that goal necessarily. So she's going to focus on that. She has to study for some exam she's taking. And so she's like, well, I have to make a living, and I'm only making a living off of social media and being online sex worker right now. And then I also have to focus on starting my own accounting firm. So everything I do online, I want it to be making me money so that I can make a living while I pursue this goal. And this is not the way to do that for her. But yep, we all wish her luck. She's going to be a very successful. I cannot wait till she has a booming accounting firm and she's doing taxes for all of the OnlyFans girls, and she is gonna kill it. She also makes all her own skincare. That's why she looks amazing. And she might start a skincare line too. So she has just different goals than me. I like sex work. I'm gonna probably do it for as long as I can, and then also branch out into some of this kind of stuff because I'm interested in it too. So thank you. All right, guys, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And yeah, have a good Monday. Bye.